7 a.m. My phone alarm goes off. I hit the snooze button. 7:15 a.m. My phone alarm goes off again. This time I turn off the alarm and spend the next 10 minutes lying in bed, just browsing social media, maybe checking my emails. 8 a.m. I walk down to breakfast. If there's no one there I'll know, I'll probably just check the news on my phone. 8:30 a.m. I listen to music while walking to a lecture. 9 a.m. I sit in a lecture taking notes on my computer. 10:30. I go to the library and I study for the next 3 hours, also planning for an essay that's way overdue. 1:30 p.m. I have lunch with a friend. We both intermittently check our phones while planning for the weekend. 3 p.m. I go to another lecture and take notes on my computer again. 5 p.m. I go for a run with my sports watch and my iPod. 7:30 p.m. I begin planning for the next day. 2 a.m. I check my email one final time before going to bed. Technology is more than just a small part of our daily lives. It's grown to dominate it for a lot of people. From when your phone wakes you up first thing in the morning, to browsing at God knows what hour. It seems to be more than just part of our lives, but the entirety of it. People begin and end their workday staring at the same computer monitor. I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing. We as a society have become global citizens. We can, at the touch of a button, contact someone around the world who want to share the ideas that we have and are willing to work together with us to meet our goals. And what I also didn't say is that I use technology on a daily basis to keep in contact with my family who live overseas. The problem with it, though, is that it's just so easy. Let me give you an example. You're at a bus stop waiting for the bus. Rather than interact with the world around you, it's just so much easier to look at your phone, this tailored version of reality that you have right there in your pocket. You're at a party and you don't see anyone you know. It's just so much easier to scroll through your social media feed. I mean, mingling, interacting with other people and trying to find someone you can have a conversation with. Tedium. You're discussing a topic with a group of friends. Suddenly, the topic changes to something maybe that's not your favorite, or maybe even somebody says something that you disagree with. Before you know it, you've reached for your phone and gone. You're no longer part of that social interaction. So, what's the effect of this? Well, human interaction is a complex process full of different chemicals and electrical signals interacting with each other. But if we wanted to simplify that, we could say that when we have a positive social experience, the brain releases something called dopamine, also known as the feel-good chemical, that makes you, like when you've been speaking with your friends, you go away from experience and you go, oh, that was really nice, I feel very happy. These slides are just not working. The problem is, modern mobile phones and technology do exactly the same thing. When you look at a cute cat, or a video of someone falling over, or a picture of your friend's last meal on Instagram, your brain also releases dopamine. And as opposed to 50 years ago, where you would see these images maybe every once in a while, suddenly you're being bombarded by these things on a daily basis. There are literally whole websites dedicated to images which will release that dopamine in your brain. And what this is doing is it's oversaturating your brain with these positive chemicals. And what this is doing is it's desensitizing you. Think of it like hearing a door slam. The first time you hear it, maybe you jump. But what if you kept hearing that door slam over and over and over again? Suddenly you wouldn't react to it in the same way as you did before. You've become desensitized to it. It's become the normal. Your brain and your phone are interacting in the same way, but with dopamine. So what happens is that becomes the normal for you. And when that gets taken away, you begin to crave it. Your phone is like a drug, providing you with little hits of happy every time you check in. And this is actually having a profound effect on our generation. Did you know that 1 in 4 people in the UK will actually experience some kind of mental illness or mental health problem this year? And I'm not saying that technology alone is the sole thing responsible for an increase in mental illness, but research has shown that slides just don't work. Ah, dear. I'm sorry. Technology is really good for you. I'm so sorry. Greater use of the internet was associated with declines in participants' communication with family members in the household, declines in the size of their social circle, and increases in depression and loneliness. And this is a study from 1998. But now, as technology has grown to inhabit our entire existence, this has become more of an issue than ever. And a couple of months ago, I realized this was happening to me too. My mobile phone wasn't just a tool that I was using to keep in contact with people in my life. It had become a vital part of it. So much so that if I didn't have it with me, I was actually getting quite anxious about what was going on and what I was missing out on. I researched this and found that there's actually a phobia called nomophobia. We'll just ignore the slides. Or no mobile phobia. And I'm sure some of you can also relate to this. When you wake up in the morning and you go, oh God, where's my phone? Where's my phone? And then you look and you've dropped it on the floor because you fell asleep while going on Tumblr or something. I began to realize that I had started to miss out on life. I was spending so much time staring at a screen. So that is when I began to make plans to escape from behind my desk and to experience part of the world that I'd begun to miss out on. So what I did is I packed a bag, put on my walking shoes, and caught a flight to Spain, and made preparations to do a 400-kilometer pilgrimage on a route called the Camino de Santiago, a route which began in the medieval ages, and that tens of thousands of people walk every year to visit the remains of St. James the Apostle in Santiago de Compostela, a holy city in the west of Spain. In the beginning, as you can imagine, it was hard. I was walking around 30 kilometers every day with a heavy backpack on my back. And I found that the desire to use my phone was even stronger there than it had been at home. And I found a little bit of solace in just maybe listening to some music or some podcasts. But as time progressed, I began to realize that I was looking at my phone less and less. And it became quite easy when I would wake up in the morning and be greeted by vistas like this. I also began to walk with people as well. And these were the people that I began to foster connections with, unlike connections that I had before. It wasn't just that we were walking for 7 or 8 hours a day together. It was the fact that we had no choice but to be present in the moment. When you're all walking down the same path, it's not just that you talk to each other, but it's that you can't stare at your phone. That's just not an option. Like, you see people here meandering around. You're like, you are going to bang into something if you don't stop. And yeah, if you didn't do it there, you might sort of take a tumble off a cliff, and like, it could be quite bad for you. So my parents actually became a little bit worried. They were like, why aren't you getting in contact with us? We gave birth to you. You should tell us what's happening. But the prospect of staring down at my palm and missing out on scenes like this and separating myself from the moment, it just didn't seem like a worthwhile thing to do. I was enjoying myself so much that by the time I got to Santiago, I was having so much fun that I decided to walk another 100 kilometers to a peninsula on the west coast of Spain called Finisterre. Called that because when the Romans were conquering Europe, they arrived at this place and looked out at the sea, and decided that they must have reached the ends of the earth, Fistera. And as I was stood there watching the sunset with the people that I had walked with, I realized how fortunate I was to have had that opportunity and how lucky I was to have encountered fantastic people along my journey. Another thing I realized was walking 500 kilometers is really hard, like so hard. I had blisters on my feet bigger than my toes, and one of my friends emailed me when I got back to tell me that 2 of his toenails had actually fallen off through the abuse that he'd put his feet through. But I don't think that I would have had the same opportunity and the same experience if it weren't for those hard bits. There were days where I would wake up at 6 a.m. and walk 45 kilometers in the pouring rain, only to arrive at a hostel completely sodden from head to toe. And of course, the hostel was full. And they were like, no, you've got to walk another 3 kilometers to wherever. Great. But if I hadn't done that, then I don't think I would have really got the whole experience. And the hardest thing for me was actually arriving home and not falling back into those old habits, not staring at my phone. Because the problem is, it's just so easy. It's easier to eat a pre-made ready meal than to make something from scratch. It's easier just to give up than to push yourself that little bit harder. And it's easier to stare at your phone rather than embrace reality around you. But I think to really appreciate and to really get the full experience from life, we have to do the same as we do on the Camino. We have to take the risk of being uncomfortable. We have to talk to people rather than email them. Go to people and start fostering these relationships. Take the risk of being uncomfortable and actually growing as a person from it. Our generation, my generation, has spent so much time just consuming media rather than creating it. And it's got to the point now where we are actually making ourselves ill. But if we push ourselves that little bit harder, and I think, sorry, I've lost my place. If we push ourselves that little bit harder, we can do something great with our lives. And I'd like to leave you with this. Technology is easy. Living is hard. But I think if we could all look up from our phones every now and then at the world around us, we could make it a better place for ourselves and everyone else. Thank you very much.